This is the story of a boy named Rudd, who really dislikes his older brother. Rudd always has to chase after him, and just when he thinks he's caught up, his big brother goes even further ahead. Rudd despises the half-hearted consideration his brother gives him just because they're related by blood. That's what he thought back then, but he realizes he was wrong when his brother dies because of him. Rudd regrets hating his only family. He looked up to his brother and wanted to stand beside him as equals, but his brother died while protecting him. His brother keeps moving forward, leaving Rudd behind. In the end, only Rudd survives. Afterward, Rudd hides beneath a tree, but the dragons, drawn by the scent of blood, fly overhead. He's lost one arm and a leg, so he can't run. He thinks he'll take a few of those dragons down with him to the other world. Suddenly a bright light flashes, and the Dragon King appears before him. Judging by his aura and scent, he's definitely the king of the dragon race. However, Rudd can't sense any power from this person. It's like looking at a mirage, a vague presence. After a while, the Dragon King asks Rudd if he's the only one left. Rudd's instincts scream that this man is more dangerous than the 7 horrible Dragon Kings. He must kill him. Rudd has one chance to close the distance and attack with all he has. He steps forward and strikes with his sword, cutting the Dragon King's head in two, just as his vision is blocked by a white flash of light. Then, he finds himself at the Academy's ceremony day, thinking he's gone back in time. The story starts on the Dragon Annihilation Academy's introduction day. The student president tells the first-year students that they are dragon slayers, meant to kill dragons and protect innocent lives. It doesn't matter if it's duty or entertainment. Suddenly another flash of light, and Rudd opens his eyes to the entrance ceremony day once more. He remembers a battle with dragons on Earth where everyone died. Rudd had killed many dragons himself, but there's no magic spell for time travel. At first he doesn't understand what's happening, but he realizes he can use this time as an opportunity. This time he'll kill all the dragons. He is walking on the stairs, talking to himself, when a girl calls him from behind. She asks if he is sick. He remembers her from the ceremony and calls her by her name, Hennith Harpulla. But she's surprised and asks how he knows her name. Rudd quickly makes an excuse, saying she's a top entrant, so he knows her. She's been wondering about his odd behaviour, talking to himself and cursing, so she asks if he has a mental illness or something. Rudd smiles at her comment, thinking she's as rude as always. But Hennith doesn't like his smile and calls him a pervert who enjoys being cursed at. Just then, they hear an announcement that the entrance ceremony is about to begin. Rudd reflects on how everything started after the last ceremony. Hennith asks for his name, and he tells her he's Rudd Donatos from a place called Disole on the outskirts of the country. She offers to teach him about the people on the second floor, who are all guild leaders of famous guilds. They're looking for promising talents to keep an eye on. Rudd thinks he knows them well, and speculates on their future achievements, and how they will eventually meet their demise. Hennith mentions that she'll be eligible to apply for a guild once she reaches the 3rd year. It's already been decided for her because the Midsummer Flames Guild leader, Liana, is her role model. The White Flames Empress, Leona Chernica, is a top-ranking fire magician who uses pure white flames. Rudd recalls that he too perished at the hands of the Dragon King, and that Hennith eventually became the next Midsummer Flames Guild leader. But she also sacrificed her life seeking revenge for her seniors. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What's the worst manhwa you've read? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now back to the recap. Suddenly there's an announcement for Hennith to step forward to read her elf. Rudd realizes that the situation is unfolding just as he remembered it. He knows that after this, his brother will come, the Aritum Student Council President, Aesir Donatos, the unparalleled genius and indomitable warrior. He's Rudd's one and only family. However, Rudd is shocked to see another student stepping forward as the student body president, Jeremy Duville. This shocks him because he remembers his brother being the president, and Jeremy was his closest friend. He rushes over to Jeremy, filled with curiosity, and asks him what he's doing there and where Aesir is. But his surprise grows when Jeremy says he's never heard of someone named Aesir Dinardos. A dark thought crosses Rudd's mind. Maybe Aesir doesn't exist in this world. The entrance ceremony wraps up, and the newcomers are told to head to their assigned classrooms. As Rudd walks, he can't shake the worry about his brother. He thinks about all the possibilities. What if Aesir changed his mind and didn't come here? Or worse, what if he's stuck somewhere for a mysterious reason? Suddenly Hennith comes up to him, noticing he's deep in thought. She asks what's bothering him, and he mentions that he's searching for someone. She suggests he contact the Information Guild or go to the library to get a list of students. Rudd thinks it's a great idea and heads towards the library with Hennith following him. She's amazed by the library's beauty, something she's always wanted to see. For Rudd, it's his first time here, and he starts looking for the record book. Henneth's eyes light up when she sees a vast collection of books that match her tastes, the kind you can't buy with money. Meanwhile, Rudd checks all the student records but can't find anyone named Aesir Dinados. Now he understands that if Aesir isn't in this world, it's because of the Dragon King Void, Dragon Sartnin. The Dragon King controls dimensions and voids and disappeared with Aesir's body during the last subjugation before his regression. This suggests Aesir might still be alive in another dimension. Suddenly, he hears Henneth arguing with the librarian about borrowing 17 books. The librarian insists they can only borrow 3 at a time and tells them to head to their classroom for a lecture. Rudd leaves Henneth and rushes to class. When he arrives, someone asks if he found the person he was looking for, but Rudd sadly replies that the name wasn't on the list. Then, Daniel Gold, the instructor responsible for teaching basic combat this year, enters the classroom. He encourages the students, saying that with hard work and a bit of talent, they can achieve remarkable things. Rudd wonders what Mr. Gold means by a bit of talent. He remembers how desperate and ashamed he felt to gain that tiny bit of talent. Daniel believes that his brief introduction is sufficient for their 4-tier stay at the academy. He urges them to give their best effort and avoid any regrets. The Dragon Slayer, as its name suggests, is the one who defeats dragons. In every battle, stamina is crucial. There are free training areas nearby where they can build up their stamina. Rudd heads to the training room he used to frequent as a child. He wants to test if he still possesses the same stamina. After some training, exhaustion sets in, and he starts to doubt his abilities. But he's just 17 years old, so he shouldn't be too hard on himself. Combat classes start tomorrow, and he has only 1 week before the sparring class. To avoid repeating his past mistakes, he must do better this time. Suddenly he spots a familiar figure, another ally from his past life, Balak Steros. Balak is a physical combatant who will later earn the title of Fist King. They didn't meet in his previous life, as Rudd usually went to a different training room. This time, difference might explain the meeting. Initially, Rudd considers ignoring him, as there seems to be no need for interaction. However, Balak's persistent stares irritate him, and he finally asks if Balak wants to pick a fight. Balak explains that he's just admiring Rudd's perfect postures, and that no one in his family, not even his father, showed him such flawless movements. They introduce themselves, and Balak offers to treat Rudd as his workout mentor. Rudd declines, saying he can't teach him. The next day, Daniel takes all the students to a training ground and asks them to choose a weapon of their choice. Henneth, who aims to become a wizard, wonders if she should pick a weapon. Daniel responds that real battles can happen unexpectedly, so it's important for her to learn how to protect herself, even as a wizard. Rudd suggests that she should choose a short dagger to control the blade's attack radius with her mana. It's small and easy to carry. In the past, Henneth was pretty good with daggers, using them to save up mana, or in sudden close combat situations. Rudd takes out his sword and swings it in the air. Daniel watches him from behind, surprised by his skill. It's not what you'd expect from an ordinary student. Rudd approaches Daniel and asks if he can use multiple weapons. Daniel explains that it's usually better to focus on one weapon, but if he's interested in different ones, he can have them. Rudd decides to go for a sword, a spear, and a big sword, declaring that he'll use them all. Daniel is impressed and curious about Rudd's background. Rudd reveals that he used to work as a mercenary to survive and tragically lost his family to a dragon. Suddenly, a commotion erupts nearby. Balak is in a heated fight with another student over a weapon. He's so skilled in physical combat that he doesn't need a weapon, and he proudly declares that the Stereo's family fighters don't use them. The other students watch in silence. Balak notices Rudd and rushes over, ignoring Henneth's questions about their relationship. Daniel intervenes, telling Balak he can't go to his friend when the professor is talking to him. Balak insists they aren't friends but have a deeper master-student connection. Rudd steps in, asserting that they are friends, but Daniel tries to persuade Balak to choose a weapon since they're in the middle of training. Rudd thinks they'll just let Balak be, as it happened in his past life. However, he's shocked when Daniel threatens that Balak might have to repeat the year, suggesting that the past has changed. Rudd realizes that his involvement might be causing this change, and worries that if Balak fails here, it could complicate things for the force that will face the future Dragon King. Balak offers to accept failure humbly, but Daniel tells him to be quiet, and asks the professor if he can make an exception. The professor refuses, saying it wouldn't be fair to others. Desperate to help Balak, Rudd suggests a pair of gauntlets as a weapon that might suit him. Balak initially refuses, emphasizing that warriors from the Steros family don't use weapons. However, Rudd insists, asking Balak to accept it as a gift from a friend. He agrees immediately, in the name of a friend, and Daniel says they'll call it a uniquely designed gauntlet. It's said that the first week in an air academy is the time for new students to adjust, but it's also when professors learn the students' abilities and scout them. Rudd has done enough to catch their attention and earn a recommendation, so he wants to spend the rest of this time preparing himself for the sparring class, but he wonders why they're both naturally grouping themselves with him. Meanwhile, some students appear in front of them and call their attention. Henneth gets angry and asks them to move out of the way, while the boy exclaims he doesn't have anything against her and also enjoyed her speech earlier. She starts shouting at them, but Rudd asks her to move aside and asks them what they want. The boy says he has a problem with them because they create scenes in the class to get attention. They all make fun of and laugh at them, saying how they got admitted to the academy. Rudd remembers he had beaten them all in his previous life because he was short-temper Rudd, but this time he will act maturely and not get freaked out. He exclaims that they are enough to fight them with one weapon, even if they use 500. The boy becomes furious about this and tries to punch Rudd, but he easily dodges him. The boy can't balance himself, falls on the ground and tries to take out his sword. Henneth shouts at him and says that using weapons outside of sparring is prohibited, but he doesn't listen to her. He tries to attack Rudd with his sword while he thinks he can test this body and the move he learned from Balak in his previous life. He uses the skill of Stero's style, bare-handed parrying, dodges him with his bare hand, and punches him back. The boy badly falls on the ground, and Rudd asks him to consider it a lesson for the next time. Balak is shocked to see his technique because it belonged to his family. Meanwhile, a professor appears there and asks about what is happening. One of Wilhelm's friends claims that Rudd hit him first, but Henneth and Balak defend him, saying that he attacked him first and just responded to his attack. The instructor is surprised at how he was able to disarm him bare-handed, because a first-year student can't do this without injuries. She asks Wilhelm's friends to take him to the clinic and calls Rudd to come to his office after classes when all of them leave. Henneth is curious, so he asks Balak how he managed to use this technique without any weapons. Balak reveals that the adults in his family can do it, but he can't yet. Henneth wonders if Balak might be his lost brother, but Rudd knows the truth. He can't tell them that he learned this in his previous life, so he brags that he's just a natural genius. Henneth, however, senses that Balak is hiding something and presses him to spill the beans, but Balak insists that they shouldn't dig into each other's secrets. After class, he heads to the instructor's office and apologizes for causing a scene. He tells her that Wilhelm insulted his friends and he didn't realize it, which led to the fight. The instructor is touched by his words and sees him as a good guy who stands up for his friends. She lets him off the hook with a smile and promises to handle Wilhelm during training. Meanwhile, Daniel enters her office because today's meeting for the freshman class teachers is in her office. He teases her for being stubborn and not coming to the meeting place. Shortly after, Class D's homeroom teacher, Arthur Winston, and Class C's homeroom teacher, Damien Grace, join the meeting. Daniel notes that this year's new students are more advanced than last year's, and he expects a high graduation rate. Arthur asks if there are any students they should keep an eye on, and Damien replies that they are all quite exceptional. Claire chimes in, mentioning the idiot in Class B, Wilhelm, whose written exam was awful, but his practical skills were outstanding. She adds that Wilhelm comes from the famous unarmed muscle enthusiast Stero's family, and Daniel seems intrigued. Daniel reveals that there are two standout prospects in his class, Harpolia's second daughter, Henneth, and a student named Rudd Donatos. They are all surprised when they see Rod's profile, showing he barely passed both the written and practical exams, lost his family, and worked as a mercenary. However, Daniel insists that Rudd is the strongest among the first years. Claire also praises Rudd, the one who subdued Wilhelm without weapons. She believes she should be his teacher since she specializes in unarmed combat. However, Daniel thinks Rudd's true talent lies in weaponry, like the spear and the sword. The meeting continues as they discuss their students' potential and future prospects. They both start fighting each other, each wanting to keep Rudd as his student. Arthur interrupts them, saying this is not how a teacher should behave. He reminds them there's still a week until the sparring class, so they should calm down. He also points out that the student has the right to choose their professor. They are shocked when Claire tells them that Rudd belongs to Disol. 10 years ago, the village disappeared after the Thousand Form incident. It was a tragedy that destroyed half of the Caliban kingdom to the south. This event marked the beginning of their national decline, eventually vanishing from the maps. A few years later, a single dragon destroyed an entire country. Daniel reveals that his master was the one who killed 1,000 dragons, but they didn't know there was a survivor of the incident. They wonder if he has come to the academy to train for revenge on dragons. Meanwhile, Arthur reveals that there is another student in Class D, another genius with monstrous talent. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out Rafat5180, who commented, "If you could reincarnate, what would your profession be? Probably a monster disassembly," on our Isekai'd 101 times video. Thanks for commenting. 2 days later, during the combined physical training class, Rudd is exercising. He thinks there are 3 days left until the sparring lecture. Now, he's finally getting used to the breathing technique and postures he used in his past life to some extent. Henneth appears and shouts at them, surprised they can work out for 3 hours straight without resting. Balak suggests she should exercise with them, thinking all the women in this academy look like they've been starved for weeks. After some time, Henneth and Rudd go to a cafe to buy some drinks. There, he sees a girl named Leon. Rudd remembers her from his past life. She used to bully him, saying she considered him more vital than his brother, but that he was weaker than him. She is a swordsman with the talent of the Devil Sword Saint, a knight as strong as his brother and one of the strongest dragon slayers. Suddenly he remembers he hates her, so he yells at her and asks her to step aside, which makes her angry. She tries to attack him, but Rudd easily blocks her attack. She attempts to kick him again, but he once again blocks her attack. She thought he was just an idiot, but he dodged her attacks twice and asked her why she was trying to pick a fight with him. Rudd exclaims that she was the one who blocked their way first. He passes her, and Leon asks his name, saying she will surely remember him. She leaves them there, and Rudd thinks he almost broke his wrist when he tried to test her strength. She's got crazy physical power. Henneth takes him to the infirmary and wraps his wrist up. After a while, Claire rushes over and asks Rudd what happened. He says it was just an accident, but Henneth spills the beans. She says Rudd got beaten by a girl named Leonka. Rudd chimes in, saying it wasn't a beatdown, just a minor squabble. They're both surprised to hear about Leon, and Claire is dead set on giving her a lesson. But Daniel steps in and says no way. He warns Claire that if she can't control her temper, it'll cause trouble. Arthur, who's in charge of Class D, steps up and says he'll handle it smartly. Leon has taken on many students before, so they need to be careful. First, they think about complaining to Leon's guardian, the leader of the Dragon Annihilation troops. He asks Arthur to talk to her properly. 3 days later, all the students gather at the training ground for a combined sparring lecture. In this lecture, they'll each get a number and choose their opponent for a match. No one can pick the same opponent twice, so there will only be 2 matches for each student. All the professors watch from the second floor as the students compete. They start with Helion McDowell, who comes forward to choose his opponent. His opponent is Henneth. Rudd thinks she's just a wizard who's not great at magic, but she chooses a sword fight as her match. With pride, she hurls fireballs at her opponent, but they're not fast enough. Helion dodges with ease. He tries to close in before she can cast another spell, but Henneth speeds up and keeps him at bay. He struggles to dodge her attacks, and before he knows it, she's got her dagger at his neck. He admits his defeat, and Henneth is declared the winner. She's hoping for some appreciation from Miss Liana. Meanwhile, Rudd is thinking that her attacks were really impressive. He realizes it could have been dangerous if his opponent had noticed a little earlier. He thinks Henneth is always like that, with her fancy way of fighting and great battle sense. Her agility is top-notch, and her use of magic is just perfect. Instructor Arthur also gives Henneth some praise, saying it's pretty rare to see a wizard fighting like this. Claire steps in and announces the next student to come out and choose their opponent. This time, Wilhelm appears and calls Rudd to come forward. He promises not to repeat his past mistake. As they watch, they feel a bit embarrassed by Wilhelm's confidence and high spirit. Rudd, however, steps out and says he'll fulfill Wilhelm's wish. He defeats Wilhelm so severely that Wilhelm becomes unconscious, and some students have to take him to the infirmary. Rudd then exclaims that he wants to spar with another student. This time he chooses Balak Steros. Balak hesitates at first, saying that Steros fighters don't usually fight with their friends, but Rudd taunts him, calling him a coward. Rudd thinks Balak must have been really powerful in his past life, like the earth shaking with each step and mountains falling with every punch. Balak finally agrees to fight him, recalling a time in their past when Balak had to calm him down on someone else's request. But Balak used harsh words against his brother and threatened to kill him if he interfered in their matter. Now they're having a spar again, but this time Balak is determined not to repeat the past. He steps forward to attack Rudd, but Rudd doesn't just dodge his attack, he punches Balak's neck too. Balak is a bit frustrated because he's landed several hits on Rudd, but there are hardly any scratches. The Steros are a family of martial artists from the northern area, and each one of them is a muscle enthusiast. Their muscles, improved over generations, have fused with mana to create armor thicker and sturdier than iron. It can be said that Balak's body has become the strongest shield with bulging muscles. Regular attacks won't work on him. This time, Rudd takes out his sword to attack Balak. Balak can't dodge the attack and falls to the ground. The teachers are shocked by their fight, wondering if it's a battle between students. They didn't use any magic, but their abilities were as great as the current dragon slayers. Claire notices that Rudd didn't give his best in the battle, but he had perfect movements, postures, and accuracy. Daniel is a fan of the ideal swing Rudd showed at the end. He thinks Rudd's swordsmanship matches his master's Ain Bryce of the Heavenly Sword style. It doesn't make sense to Daniel because he's sure his master and Rudd have never been together. No matter how gifted someone might be, he believes no one could beat Rudd's extraordinary talent, not even Leon. Rudd isn't a genius, he's a monster, a child whose skills are already perfect even before he started learning. After the sparring lecture, they all head to the student cafeteria. Henneth isn't pleased about being there and suggests going outside to eat, but Balak says outside food lacks protein, and Rudd claims he's tired, so they can't go out. He questions Henneth's desire to spend money outdoors when they get good food for free. Then he remembers that she comes from a wealthy family, unlike him and Balak. Rudd is from a poor family. He had to risk his life to earn money. He gets upset when Henneth offers to buy him food from outside, as he doesn't want her kindness. Suddenly some students approach them. They're looking for Rudd. They turn out to be the guild masters from the Pursuer and Clouded Moon guilds. Roderick, the Pursuer guild master, introduces himself and praises Rudd's fighting style. Rudd also introduces himself but realizes he doesn't have any past connections with them. In his previous life, when he worked as a dragon slayer, they died in a battle against the 7 dragons. Roderick introduces him to Abel and mentions that Abel is a bit shy. Meanwhile, Henneth and Balak also stood up from their seats and introduced themselves. Henneth was curious about why they were in the students' cafeteria, and Roderick explained that they were alumni of the academy, so they often came there to eat. Henneth wondered if Miss Liana had also been there to eat, but Roderick sadly informed him that she had left as soon as the sparring lecture ended. Roderick then told Rudd that Abel had praised him a lot, saying he was the kind of person needed in his guild. Abel asked if Rudd knew him, and Rudd revealed that he was the 4th ranking dragon slayer on the individual list, and the guild master of the 2nd ranking guild, Clouded Moon. Abel explained that their 2nd rank was because they specialized in information, not because they were weaker than the top-ranked guild. He admired Rudd's confidence and offered him a spot in the Clouded Moon guild right after graduation. Rudd was taken aback by the offer and asked why Abel was going to such lengths. Abel replied that Rudd was a genius with great potential who needed a bigger stage to shine. He assured Rudd that Clouded Moon would provide the perfect platform for his talents. However, Rudd hesitated, stating that he hadn't chosen a guild yet. He believed the offer had potential, but he didn't want to be tied down to a guild where he couldn't do as he pleased. Rudd proposed a deal to Abel instead. He asked Abel to help him find his older brother, who had survived the disaster 10 years ago. Abel inquired about what he had to offer in return, and Rudd offered a good relationship. Abel considered the offer, thinking that having a strong bond with someone with a bright future wasn't a bad idea. He hoped their relationship would grow even stronger after they graduated. Henneth asked Rudd about the letter he had received from the teachers, but Rudd had momentarily forgotten due to the unexpected offer. The letter was about the assessment of the first sparring lecture. Rudd couldn't recall receiving positive reviews in his past life. He was about to open and check the letter, but Henneth assured him there was no need. She believed it would contain only good things that his family would be proud of. As Rudd pondered Henneth's unusual behavior, he wondered if something he had mentioned about his brother had bothered her. Then he remembered her elder sister, who was in a coma. Balak was curious about Rudd's brother, and asked him what kind of person his brother was. Rudd replied that his brother was incredibly kind, so kind that it made someone feel like an idiot. However, despite being an indomitable dragon slayer, his brother struggled because of his incompetent younger sibling. Rudd couldn't help but reminisce about his brother, describing him as immensely powerful, someone he couldn't even compare to. Balak tried to reassure Rudd, and promised to help him find his brother. Just as they were talking, Henneth interrupted them, urging them to open the letters they had received. Henneth eagerly opened her letter, which informed her that she had great potential to become a formidable battle wizard. Balak, on the other hand, received a letter that seemed to inflate his ego. It praised his perfect body, outstanding strength, reflexes, and even his beautiful muscles. Balak couldn't resist bragging about his gorgeous muscles, claiming even the professors acknowledged them. Now it was Rudd's turn to open his letter, but Henneth offered to read it for him. To their shock, they noticed a sign on Rudd's letter that indicated the professors were calling him to choose them. After a while, Rudd entered the staff room where all the teachers eagerly awaited him. Arthur asked him to take a seat and wished him a comfortable stay in the academy, while Claire offered him coffee and snacks. Meanwhile, Daniel advised Rudd to wear a jacket because it was still chilly outside. Rudd asked if they had called him to choose his advisor. Arthas was excited and emphasized the importance of the sign left in the letter. After the sparing class, the first-year students were assigned to professors based on their traits. Sometimes a professor directly contacted a student, and these signs indicated just that. Claire emphasized that they prioritized the student's opinion and asked Rudd to choose one of them. Rudd acknowledged that they were all great teachers, but he had a special connection with Daniel, who had taught him the way of the sword in his past life. So he chose Daniel, expressing his desire to learn the course of the blade from him, which made Daniel very happy. However, Rudd had a condition. He asked Daniel to take him as his direct disciple. This revelation shocked everyone in the room. Daniel questioned Rudd, asking if he understood the significance of being a direct disciple. Rudd explained that there was no successor to carry forward the legacy of the sky-piercing technique, an ancient swordsmanship and mana-using technique designed to slay flying dragons. It had been taught to only one heir in each generation in his past life. Professor Daniel, a skilled swordsman, was the student of a legendary swordsman. His older brother was next in line to inherit the legacy. Daniel wondered how his brother knew the secret technique was empty. He thought his brother wanted him to be the heir, but hadn't expected him to bring it up first. He asked Rudd why he desired this power, and Rudd revealed that he wanted it because he was weak. Dragons had taken his friends and family, and he believed he could have saved them if he were stronger. He didn't want to witness his loved ones die in front of him anymore. Daniel thought about his own family and how dragons had taken his mother's life when he was young. He agreed to take Rudd as his direct disciple and proposed the idea of all the professors co-teaching and supervising him. Rudd was shocked by this offer. He recognized Rudd's talent and believed that teaching him just one sword technique would be a waste. If there was a way to unlock his potential, they had to try everything. Rudd questioned how he could learn from all the professors simultaneously, but Arthur thought it was a brilliant idea, as they needed a powerful dragon slayer. Rudd wondered if they were agreeing too quickly on something that might become a problem later. Arthur reassured him, saying it wouldn't be unfair to other students because they didn't possess Rudd's level of talent. Claire also expressed interest in Daniel's offer. Daniel made it clear that it was merely a proposition and that Rudd's decision would be respected. Daniel pondered the responsibility of filling the position of the next heir to the sky-piercing technique, while also accepting other professors as advisors. He worried about potentially taking away someone else's opportunity. After careful consideration, he agreed, believing they needed to secure everyone's future. To do that, he knew he had to push his limits and become stronger, no matter the cost. Later on, Claire approached Leon and revealed that self-control building lectures were starting with her. She instructed Leon to get into position and focus. If Leon zoned out, Claire would be ready to test her self-control. First, she punches her stomach, which really hurts, and as punishment she has to clean the academy because she got into trouble on the last day. She's sitting on the stairs crying when Rudd walks by. He's surprised to see her crying because he remembers how she used to be so cold and distant, like she wasn't even human. He wonders if this change in her is because of the Dragon Annihilation troop leader's death in his past life. Leon used to be just a regular kid before her adoptive mother, the troop leader, passed away. At that time, Rudd was still just a young boy, so their relationship wasn't great either. Now, he's the one who made her cry. He watches her from a distance for a while and then musters up the courage to ask why she's upset in the hallway. She starts yelling at him, blaming him for her hard time, but he offers her a tissue and apologizes for his rude behavior. She's surprised that he's apologizing and accepts it, warning him not to cause any more trouble. Rudd promises to avoid her as much as possible, thinking she'll become stronger on her own, just like she used to act alone in the past. She goes back to her room, feeling like she did something she's never done before, but that doesn't mean she wants to make friends. Rudd listens to her words but stops her and asks why she thinks he's following her. Rudd claims he's not following her but heading to class. Leon is also heading in that direction, which surprises Rudd. He wonders if they have the same professor, Daniel, who he's been waiting for. Rudd asks if both Leon and Rudd are in the same class, and Daniel replies that he nominated both of them. Rudd is shocked because Claire was Leon's academic advisor in his past life. Meanwhile, she approaches Rudd and asks if he has a problem with her. He tells her she should learn grappling techniques with Claire because he saw her sparring and she's already excellent at swordsmanship. He thinks grappling would help her bridge the gap in her skills. Daniel agrees with him, saying grappling techniques would complement her sword attacks. She has no idea that Rudd is watching her closely. She refuses, saying she's not the only smart one in the academy, and she knows what she needs to do. Rudd worries about how he'll train with her. He tries again to convince her to go to Professor Claire, but she gets angry and says she'll never go to that crazy professor who treats her students like dogs. Rudd thinks the future has changed again because in the past Leon's academic advisor was Claire and they had such a good relationship, but now they are like sworn enemies. It all starts with Daniel's plan, but the root cause of this plan is him. Daniel says that before starting the class he will give them a brief explanation. He states that the stages of swordsmanship are profound because it takes painstaking efforts that will break his bones. Both of them have already reached an excellent stage where they no longer need theories, but there are thousands of ways to use a completed movement, according to Daniel. The perfect training to pile up that experience is through self-control sparring lectures. They are shocked that he wants them to learn while receiving a beating. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.